Hi, and welcome to Conquering Commas, Lessons 4 and 5, Letters and Adjectives. We actually have two lessons today because one of the lessons is so short it's only going to take you a minute to completely master it. First, let's have a little preview. In this lesson, we're going to talk about rules 1, 2, and 3 briefly. We'll learn the rule about using commas whenever you write a letter. We're going to also figure out another rule, which is the rule about adjectives that carry equal weight. Meaning not that they're weightlifting adjectives, but that they actually are from similar categories, and so we have to put commas between them. And in the end, as always, we'll have a little review. Before we do anything else, let's talk about the rules you already know. Rule number 1, put a comma between items in a series. Rule number 2, put commas between the parts of a date and put commas between the parts of an address. Rule number 3, put a comma after introductory words at the beginnings of sentences. All of these rules have something in common because we put commas between parts in order to help make sense of what we have to say and to make it easier for the reader. First is the friendly letter rule. This is just about the easiest rule ever. When you write a letter to somebody after you have the greeting, Dear Zelda, comma, I am yours forever, love, comma, Scott. At the end, when you have the closing, whether it's a love or sincerely or hugs and kisses or whatever you may be saying at the end of a letter, you use a comma. Super easy. The only thing that's tricky at all about this rule is that when you're writing a business letter, instead of putting a comma in, you use a colon. Look at this example. Dear Mr. Jones, colon, thank you for your order. Sincerely, comma, Lucy Smith. Here, you just take that comma that was after the greeting, and instead of a comma, you put in a colon. That's if you're writing kind of an official business letter. Now that I'm sure you've mastered rule number 4, let's talk about rule number 5. Rule number 5 happens when you have adjectives that carry equal weight in a sentence. Let's say you decide to describe something with two adjectives. You're describing a noun, and you don't want to put the word and or in between them. You think it would sound better, have a more interesting rhythm if you didn't put that coordinating conjunction in. Then you'll need to put a comma in between those adjectives. But they need to be adjectives that are in a similar category. I'll show you what I mean. Here's our first example. It was a wild, comma, wintry day. If you look at the words wild and wintry, they are similar to one another. They are both adjectives that are describing the kind of day we are having. You need to put a comma between those two adjectives so that the reader understands that they are separate concepts from one another, but that they're both describing the day. Here is the one important thing you have to remember about this rule. The adjectives have to carry equal weight. They need to be similar. And the way to test for this is to insert the word and. Here's an example. The beautiful, comma, terrifying lion doesn't care if his mane is ruffled in the breeze. How can we test to see if we really need that comma? We'll add the word and. The beautiful and terrifying lion doesn't care if his mane is ruffled in the breeze. That makes sense. So you know that you need to put the comma in between beautiful and terrifying. Here's the tricky part. There always has to be a tricky part, doesn't there? Sometimes the adjectives that you have modifying a noun don't carry equal weight. If that is true, don't use a comma. You can use the and test, though, to help you figure that out. Let's look at another example. He grew up in a yellow house with a white picket fence. Notice that the word white and the word picket are both adjectives that are describing fence, but you don't put a comma between them. White is describing the color, picket is describing the kind of fence. We can test for this concept very easily by adding the word and. He grew up in a yellow house with a white and picket fence. No, that doesn't make any sense at all. You would not say that. So then you know that you are going to write the sentence just like this. He grew up in a yellow house with a white picket fence, no comma. Here's a quick review. Use a comma after the greeting in a friendly letter. Use a comma after the closing in a friendly letter. Use commas to separate adjectives that carry equal weight. And if you're wondering if the adjectives need a comma between them, you can't quite figure out what equal weight might mean, just insert the word and see if it makes sense. If the word and makes sense, you need the comma. I hope you're getting even closer to conquering commas.